Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is October the 6th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign living ancient, Article 3, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan, consular court action. We are the sovereign living justice in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. I am sovereign living justice Pauline Denise Ritchie, and my free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bey. Both are in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American descendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient Empire State from Morocco. We are the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are ancient Washington District 4, Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. Today we are executing the law by our sovereign capacity, which is the original indigenous natural divine, sovereign ancient Article 3 living United States District 4 Columbia Court, and we are the sovereign fiduciaries, receivers, secured creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, claimants, and beneficiaries in this cause for action. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our sovereign ascension. And we've already issued the state and federal creditors' bill for possession against all judgment debtors and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, non-pro-tunc. Islam. The first thing that we want to state for the record, on the record, and letting the record show, now and forever this mother nation reigns. We are the mother nation, and for that we are grateful. Coming up on October the 8th, 9th, and 10th is our 3-day full moon fast, and we're going to be fasting with our focus on welcoming in the abundance into this realm and into this dimension. There is going to be on the 9th and 10th what they call, and this is just something that I read that hit my truth center. On the 9th and 10th is going to be what they call the double full moon. The double full moon means that normally when we have a full moon, it will indicate that the moon is very close to the earth, and it looks bigger, and they generally call them super moons for the most part. We call them super moons too, but they're all super moons to us. And on the 9th and the 10th, which is not usual, the moon will be just as close on both days. So that is unusual, but not for this time of year, and not for us, and not for this time that we are at on the timeline since time immemorial into perpetuity. So with that being said, that is indicative for us. The double portion is real, and for some who are seeing what we're doing, if they don't understand what we're doing or understand what we're doing, they're going to think they're seeing double with the subjects because of the things we say and the things we do. If you don't know that there was previously a dead United States, of America, and that we're the living United States for America, it will seem like you're seeing double, okay? But you're not. There's only one God, and that is the Moors. So that is what the double moon is all about, and you can Google that. It just popped up on my screen. I wasn't looking for it because I've not heard of that previously. So with that being said, this flag that we have here, this banner of amity and commerce here on the screen, this right here, if you will notice, it is actually, this is the right way that it's supposed to be. This is the way that banner is supposed to be displayed when we display it, because, of course, the cosmos and the stars come first. Then comes the red and the white, okay? Because we are led, not led by the cosmos, but we look to the cosmos to announce what we are doing. So no one leads us. The cosmos does not lead us. We lead ourselves. However, where this banner is concerned, here, this banner, we stated on the public record that it should be flown this way. And I happened to go down, not down, but I went to the Capitol building today at this territory, which is, it's our Capitol building. And there was a house across the street from the Capitol building displaying the flag properly. And I'm going to move my big old head out of the way so you can see it being displayed properly here. Let me put that on the screen. So someone there is displaying it the way that it is displayed on our documentation. I don't know who this is. I don't know who that is, but they are displaying what we have at the top of our documentation. And they have known, the subjects have known that when they start to see the banner being displayed properly, that proper commerce is being done on the land. Gold-backed, lawful, and legal commerce is being done, and not unlawful and illegal or unlegal. So they are in compliance. And when I was standing here in front of this house, and I'm calling it a house because, again, it's probably a subject who is living there. When you look over to your right, the Capitol building is right there. So they are making it known also. You cannot really go into the Capitol building without seeing this domicile, depending on which angle you come from, especially where public parking is concerned. And so we are grateful that the subjects and the citizens are getting in alignment based on the things that this Congressional Assembly puts forth on the public record. So now, recently we did a demonstration where conveyances are concerned. And the outcome of the demonstration did not go the way that we knew that it can go, and it will go that way. But it didn't go that way when we did this demonstration, so we said, okay, we're going to look back at the lien process that we use. We're going to look back at everything and see if there's something else that the ancestors want to show us. So whenever I'm doing demonstrations, and this is what I love about our ancestors, they give us part of it, and they see, okay, what kind of energy are they going to have with this amount of authority? And then they say, okay, they did okay with that. Let's give them another level. Let's up because they're continuing to raise the frequency on us knowing our authority and exercising our authority. And you know, as I was stating, and I've stated this before, you know, when we first put the lien process on the public record and said, hey, everyone, this is how we do the lien process, because that's a process that many did not know how to do the lien process when we first, there was a couple who knew, like a few more who knew how to do a lien process, not the one that we're doing, but a lien process. And they were wanting to charge people for that process for the most part. And I'm not saying all of them, but all the ones I came across were wanting to charge to teach the process, and they were not even going to share the process in its entirety. They were only going to give bits and pieces too, because guess what? They only had bits and pieces. So then when the ancestors revealed the process to us and said, okay, this is the basic way that the process is done, but you're going to have to pay close attention to the language and how, go ahead and do what you can do with this process here, because your status needs to be on the public record, all Moors. Our status needed to be on the public record, and we needed to go ahead and put a stop to start stopping that huge thing that we thought was a monster, which is unlawful commerce. We needed to see some changes there. And sure enough, in 2018, when we started to see the changes, we put the lien on the public record on the United States Corporation Company by sovereign affidavit. And when we did that, it liened them definitely in our state, in our sovereign living state. They were liened, which meant that, okay, we had to stop contracting with them. We had to stop, start tampering down and pulling back on the use of the free use of those green things, those debt notes. We automatically started pulling back on all of that, and we put a termination of corporate contracts on the public record. So now, and again, not all Moors have decided to stop using the fiat, and again, that is up to them. It's up to each sovereign as to whether they want to continue contracting with death and the dead and the debt, or not. We have the say. As for us and our estate, we said, no, we're not going to contract with them anymore, and we're also not going to use their fiat. So we started doing all that we could to pull back in as many different areas as we could. Stop, this is what we did. Now, not everybody did this, but this is what we did. In order to start pulling back on that, we stopped going to the ATM as often as we could possibly stop going. And we have completely stopped going to the ATM at this point. The last time we went, though, was so that we could do the fiat burning ceremony, because it is actually our custom and usage here at Ancient Morocco to do away with debt. Debt does not belong at Ancient Morocco, and so we wanted to celebrate our freedom from debt as well. So, having said that, we did the demonstration, and the ancestors said they gave us the cue that is exactly what we were supposed to do. But there was some things they wanted to add to it and call to our attention about the lien process. And I've seen many, many, many liens done. I've done many liens. Many of you have done liens. And we did them with good intention, and they worked. Now we want them to be even more precise. And so we're going to be more precise about the lien process. So what the ancestors said after this last demonstration that we did last week, last week and the week before last, regarding the conveyances, we started looking at the lien process, and the ancestors said that it is time to add another step and to also look at what we've been doing. And update what we've been doing, and then put that last step in there. So the last step, we've been talking about this process of reformation. You know, when you study history, you hear the terms Renaissance and Reformation and Reconstruction. They talk about that a lot, and I did not know what that meant until our Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey started saying, talking about how they were reconstructing, like, for example, where Renaissance is concerned, they were lightening up all of the paintings that our ancestors did, and I don't think they lightened up the ones our ancestors did. I think they copied them and presented lighter versions of it to, in order to supposedly write us out of history and put us into a dark age, supposedly, but that didn't happen. We can see. And so with that type of change, all they were really doing is what we're doing now, which is whenever we see something that they have done, like a form, first of all, we don't use their forms. We should never use their forms. Some Moors think it's okay to use them. Okay, you're sovereign. As the state and the nation, we have said we are competent to do our own forms. And what we do, in order to even get to this point, we actually had to speak by affidavit first. That is the most important. Everyone, and even with our forms that we're forming and reforming, affidavits must go with them. Your affidavits must go with them. The form that we have redone, the most recent form was the receipt form where the purchase order is concerned for the conveyance. So we showed you that how they presented a purchase order. Well, we were not going to sign or use their purchase order in what we're doing. So we recreated the purchase order and then gave it a new title, a new name, and called it a purchase order receipt or a fiduciary trustee receipt. And we presented that in the demonstration. Now, the demonstration was presented, but the demonstration is not finished. And so we want to continue moving forward and finishing our demonstrations, and then, while we're finishing past demonstrations, putting new demonstrations on the public record. So we want to take a look at that lien process and add another step to it and look at what we've done before more closely. The first thing that I noticed when I went back and looked at our lien process is, first of all, when we do them on affidavits, by affidavit, they mean what we intend for them to mean. That is the safety and the security and the sovereignty and the intention of our affidavit. That's why it's better to speak by affidavit, because even if you say something and let's say you're new to Moorish science and you didn't really, when you look back, you think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It's your intention in presenting the affidavit that overstands the word. So the spirit gives life to the letter. In the Biblioteleotech and the ancient writings, it says the letter killeth, the spirit maketh alive. Well, for us, the letter doesn't even kill. It's there, and then we add our spirit to it. And our spirit is our writing, our energy. And that's why we present our own documents and forms and affidavits. So we started looking at the process and looking at the language, and the ancestors brought a couple of things to our attention that we want to update on the lien process. One of the things we want to update on the lien process is the use of the word collateral. In our liens, we have a collateral statement. And because we were doing liens by affidavit, that statement meant exactly what we said it meant in that document. Okay? The ancestors brought this word collateral to our attention because we know that this word, when you separate it, it is collateral. Whenever you see C-O, that generally means that there are two parties coming together equally to do something. Okay? And up to a certain point, there are two parties coming together equally, up to a certain point. But then the point that we're at right now is we are standing fully in our sovereign status, not in it. We are our sovereign status, and so we are God, all of us, and there is no God beside us. So we want to take that word and change it, update it on our lien process. Let's take a look at the word collateral and see what it means. Collateral, as a noun, they're using it here, and again, we know in the rules of when we, the Phoenicians, define something, you don't use that word to define that word. So number one can basically be stricken because a collateral relative or kinsman, that is not how you define the word collateral. So they're trying to, make it so that there's some blood covenant there where collateral is concerned. But again, you cannot use the word to define the word. You have to use other words. So number 2 says anything of value pledged as additional security for the performance of the main obligation. That means that someone was putting something on top of as additional security. However, the main obligation to perform is enough. The main obligation to perform is enough. And again, when you're liening something, you are putting additional security on the property. However, the main obligation for us, in keeping with what we're doing, the obligation for subjects to perform is there already, just by virtue of our status and their status. Okay? It says collateral security. Collateral security is that it's security for both parties. And our liens are indeed security for both parties. However, when you're liening, there's also a third party that you're liening who is belligerent. And to that belligerent corpse party that's being liened, it is not security for them. It is actually insecurity for them, not us. And then it says here, and this is the main part of this definition that let me know that it's time to change that language. It says, where collateral is concerned, it is returned to the debtor when the obligation is fulfilled. It is returned to the debtor when the obligation is fulfilled. Well, that is the trick bag, kind of, sort of, that the debtors, the true debtors, have been using to try and hold on just a little longer to that which is rightfully ours. And so as long as we had, and this is the truth of this matter, as long as we, and I'll say we, even though we don't have any contracts with them, but as long as Moores had contracts with the debtors, they were considered co-debtors. There's that word co again, and we've been talking about co-debtors the last couple of weeks. You don't want to be a co-debtor with them, especially when we're talking about bankruptcy. because it puts you, it attempts to put you on the same level. And that's where that quote unquote all men are created equal situation is what they were putting forth and pushing. Well, we know that that's not true. All men are not created equal. First of all, define men or man. That's the reason why there's man and there's mankind. Okay. And we're not putting anyone down, we're just stating facts. So it is returned to the debtor when the obligation is fulfilled. That is why we have changed and updated that word on our liens. So, and then here's just a little bit more about the adverb collaterally. Collaterally is side by side, but it's still indirectly in the nature of a side issue or subject matter. That's the definition of subject matter. In the nature of a side issue, subject matter is a side issue. Proper invocation of jurisdiction means that there is no collateral property. That is the truth of the matter. And then in number 3 here on the screen, in collateral relation, not in a direct line. That means that there's something somewhere else, not lineally. Not lineally. That means not of the same line or bloodline or birthright. But there was a collateral obligation that the debtors were keeping custody of the property while we stood. And I will say that our ancestors know what they're doing there in the past, and now it's time for that to be different. And again, we must state that it's different. Okay? Because there are many, or some, I won't say many because we've grown so much, but there are some who were not ready for the vast amount of wealth. And in order for us to stay safe and secure and sovereign, and we're always sovereign, but in order to keep from recontracting, in order to fix something that we have taken or gotten returned to us, there was a collateral or a custodial situation with regard to the good, the property, the land, the commerce, all of that. Okay, it's kind of like the stories that you hear when someone has won, quote unquote, the lottery, and less than 2 years later they are no longer with us because they could not handle that amount of wealth so quickly. They didn't even know how to handle that amount of wealth. And so now we do know how to handle our wealth. We know how to manage and govern our wealth. And so these things are being made known to us publicly now. All loan paperwork, loans, leases, all commercial paperwork had that was done in the dead state had a collateral lien placed on it. All of it had a collateral lien, and that's where repossessions and evictions and all of that came from. That's what all of that is there was an initial lien placed on every time we signed something in our sleep. That put a lien on it automatically. But it was a lien in the favor of the creditor. And if we did not know we were the creditor, It was not yet revealed to us that we were the creditors. So everything automatically was being, quote unquote, pledged back to the debtors, okay, not the creditors. And we're the real creditors. We know that. But this made it so that the debtors...
So sorry about the First Avenue loss there, Pauline. I saw it on the city council meeting.
That is where all of that came from. So with that being said, not lineally, there's your bloodline and birthright disconnection. And when I say disconnection, I actually mean connection. Because when collateral relations are terminated where property is concerned, that means that the creditor has full authority and access to the property. It says here, page by page, let's see, to see that none are missing. Just one moment. I think I may have left part of that out. Here it is. Okay. Collate, to place a cleric in a benefice. So, you know, whenever you're creating copies, it will ask you if you want to collate the paper. That means, do you want to put them in order, in ascending or descending order? And so collate is another word that is a derivative of collateral, or vice versa. Collateral, the Latin is com, which means together, and lateralis, lateral, which means side, or lattice, side. Side by side, parallel. Accompanying, concomitant. Those are words that talk about the timing. Of a similar but subordinate nature, secondary. Of corresponding value or importance. See, either it's side by side or it's not. If it's subordinate, it's not side by side. That's how you know that subjects wrote these definitions, because they almost are contradictory, but that's when people are trying to write themselves into a definition. But we clarify it, that's why we bring it forth. Collateral, of corresponding value or importance, and then you're not corresponding if there is some descendant. Collateral, descended from the same ancestors but in a different line. And they say Franklin Roosevelt and Theodore Roosevelt were collateral relatives. Number 6, designating or of security given as a pledge for the fulfillment of an obligation. This is where double booking was taking place, because the obligation existed even before the property came into the picture. The obligation was already there, and it stands as law anyway, regardless of whether there is any collateral or concomitant relation. So collateral assurance, in law, assurance made in addition to the principal deed. Not necessary. Not necessary. Collateral issue, in law, an issue aside from the main question in the case. In other words, someone wanted to get to subject matter and jump clean over personam jurisdiction, which is where everything starts and stops. Do they have jurisdiction? Well, if they are claiming some collateral issue, and that is why termination of all corporate contracts was so and is so important. Not only termination of all corporate contracts, but standing as fiduciary for any and all, everything. Okay. Collateral security, it's additional security as property, as in property, a bill of sale, a stock certificate or any other pledge deposited to secure the performance of a contract or the discharge of an obligation. So this is something in addition. A lien is additional security, but it does not have to be collateral. It doesn't have to be side by side with any subject matter. It can be side by side with our affidavit, and that's what we're putting forth today. So we have updated our liens to say beneficiary property, or we can say security. We can use any words. We can even use words that state that our liens are lateral to our affidavit, or they can be collateral to our affidavit. And essentially that's what the collateral statement was saying in there in our liens, because it was also talking about gold-backed money. It was talking about original indigenous property and all of that. So we're not saying that that was wrong. What we are saying is we want to be more precise, because fortunately and this is one of the questions that we had when we first started putting the lien process on the public record. Some were wanting to ask for fiat in their collateral statement because they felt like, oh, I gave them X amount of fiat notes and I want my fiat notes back. Well, no, because that would actually be collateral in the negative. That would bring the statuses down to debtor status, and that means whenever we would pretend to descend to a debtor status, that automatically gave a court, because that's their dominion. That's where they are. That's where they have their, previously had their issues. Or any perceived authority is in the debtor status. And so knowing that we are not debtors, and knowing that that where collateral security and collateral issues are concerned, we're side by side with each other and not with debtors. Okay? And so that is another reason why when we use the word, fortunately we use the word using our affidavits and not their form, because if you use that word and you use their form, that makes you side by side with debtors. That's why we don't use their form. So what have we done? We have actually, aside from our affidavits, we're adding our UCC form to what we're doing. That way, and this is something that the ancestors made very clear, that way our system will acknowledge the numbers that we are putting forth. Okay? What do I mean by the system will acknowledge? Our system, a UCC form is what the system was accustomed to seeing. However, we're not co-debtors, we are the creditors. So we actually had to reform, reconstruct that UCC form, and then also always put our affidavits with it. So let's just take a look. I wanted to show you what the form looks like, and I will also put a link to the form in the chat, as well as I put the link to the form out on social media yesterday. I want to show you one other thing before we show you the form. Also, we had been using the term transmitting utility, and we would always say that the debtor is a transmitting utility. Well, the debtors had to be the transmitting utility until we created our own structure whereby the creditor could be the transmitting utility. That is where our own money and our own forms and our own everything comes into play, comes into fruition, comes into manifestation, comes into action and activation. Is we had to build, and actually present our own system whereby transmission could take place with the proper transmitting utility. So again, these are things that the ancestors have shown us over the last few days and weeks as well. Transmitting utility definition, let's take a look at that, because we need to know who is it that can actually be a transmitting utility. Well, before we presented our ancient structure, many were saying, we have to use the all caps because that's the only way that bank accounts and things could be recognized and things could be transmitted back and forth. Well, the ancestors, that never sat well with me because I knew they had control of what they created. They didn't create it, they made it. Whatever they made, they had control of it. So I knew that using their all caps was never going to work in our favor because I had seen it so many times, and we all agree on that. For the most part, those who know that anything that's created by the dead is, if they are the author of it, that makes them the authority of it. In as much as dead authority can even be a thing, because it's not really a thing. So what we did was the ancestors began showing us how to properly proclaim our living natural person, because the all caps is a person. It's in the United States, and when I say United States, I mean the ancient United States. In the, what is the name of the book? It's a law. It's like a law dictionary, but it's not a law dictionary. It is the style manual, the writing style manual. That's what I'm trying to say. In the ancient United States or States United writing style manual, the writing style manual says that any word in all capital letters is either, and this is what what was previously stated about all caps, it is either a U.S. vessel, a corporation, or a dead person. Okay. Well, that was the change that was made, but when the foreign matter came into being, that was what the definition became of all caps. When they use all caps, it's either a U.S. corporation, company, dead vessel. It is a corpse or corporation, or it is a dead person. Well, when we create our own all capitalized name, okay, and again, we don't have names. A name is a tool on a piece of paper. When we create it on our fiduciary document, then it becomes a living natural person. We're not persons, we're people. And even that is not all the way correct. We're actually God. And so when you talk about transmitting utilities, Moors were saying, well, the only thing that we've ever been seeing where bank accounts and things coming in and credits coming, or what we thought were credits coming in, is when the black all caps name is there. And so the ancestors taught us how to manifest that properly and competently where our fiduciary document is concerned. And so now that we have built the structure where transmitting utilities are concerned, what we're saying is we're the creditor. The creditor now has a proper transmitting utility, which we've always had it. We just needed to recognize it and present it. And now that we have it, and we've presented it, credit can now come to the heirs. But credit cannot come to the heirs if we're using a debtor as the transmitting utility. Okay? So now that we have our structure and our state and our estate properly stated on the public record, who can be a transmitting utility? Well, we looked at that. We looked at the word, and this came up. Transmitting utility. The term transmitting utility means an entity, including an entity described in Section 824F of this title, that owns, operates, or controls facilities used for the transmission of electric energy. In interstate commerce, so it's talking about all commerce, and for the sale of electric energy at wholesale. Where did this come from? It came from the USC, 16 USC 796. Let me make sure that we are quoting that. Yes, that is correct. It's 16 USC 824 and 16 USC 796. Okay. And 824 talks about the transmitting utility. Well, as we looked at it, again, that word transmitting utility is on a financial or commercial document, which is a lien. What do liens have to do with electric energy, the transmission of electric energy? That should tell us that each and every document is also transmitting energy. And debtors cannot own, operate, nor control anything. That's the problem that we had when we thought we were debtors, is no control of anything perceptively. We thought that. Many have been either arrested or evicted or something to that nature, have that enacted. Okay? So that's because debtors cannot own, operate, or control anything. Now that we have, not only do we know we're the creditor, but we have stated it properly on the public record. Now on our liens, we state that the creditor is the transmitting utility. Okay? The creditor is, and we'll show you that in just a moment. The creditor is the transmitting utility. One moment. Let me pull up really quickly. I believe I have a lien. Just one moment. Let me see if nope, that's not it. I want to show you the document as we've done it most recently. Some other things came up with regard to transmitting utilities. Here, I found something else in the archives, ferc.gov, talking about transmitting utilities. And again, this is also talking about actual lights and water and public utilities and etc. They keep putting the word person in their definition. Okay, and again, that is why our fiduciary document is so important, because we were literally building the structure or presenting the structure whereby the creditor can be the transmitting utility instead of having to depend on a collateral relationship with a debtor to deliver the goods. Debtors cannot own, operate, or anything of that nature any property. In this FERC.gov website, it says most sections found in Parts 2 and 3 of the FPA provide for FERC authority over the actions of a public utility. And a public utility is defined by the FPA as any person who owns or operates facilities. And again, a facility can be a conveyance, it can be a building, it can be a domicile, it can be a temple, a mosque, any of that. Any person who owns or operates facilities subject to the jurisdiction of the commission, the FPA commission or the FERC commission. It says, i.e., any person who owns or operates facilities for the transmission of electric energy in interstate commerce and to the sale of electric energy at wholesale in interstate commerce, 16 U.S.C. 824E. It says also further, this includes, facilities includes not only traditional investor-owned utilities, but also power marketers, regional transmission organizations, and independent system operators. Facilities can be paper facilities. Now, this is where the corpses were writing themselves in and saying this can actually exist on paper, where you can own something on their fake fraudulent paper. That is why we don't use their forms. That's why we don't use their forms, because they're automatically claiming jurisdiction on paper of any person pretending to own or operate anything. This is why we don't use their forms, their papers. We don't contract with them. We don't do any of that. And then it says public utilities at 16 U.S.C. 824E are not the same as electric utilities. That is absolutely not true. Public utilities and electric utilities are the same when you're talking about sovereign utilities. So for us, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about public utilities, electric utilities, or transmitting utilities. It's what we say it is. It says, and are not the same as transmitting utilities, 16 U.S.C. 796-23, subsection 23. And then it says here, and this is why we say that does not really even apply to us, because it says here exempt wholesale generators or EWGs and foreign utility companies or FUCOs, which I won't even pronounce that, which only have relevance in the context of the Public Utility Holding Company Act of 2005 are also different. So they're putting more qualifiers on that. But it is, again, what we say with regard to utilities, whether it be a transmitting utility on our liens or any of those. So since we know that we own, we operate, we are the heirs where liens are concerned, where property, where currency, where commerce is concerned, where land and all of that is concerned, we don't want the land or anything held by debtors. It needs to be held and operated and owned by the creditors. And so this is, I want to show you this is our state UCC lien formula format. And when we say this, when we talk about this particular formula or format, what we're saying is put this with your affidavits. Okay, these don't go by themselves. They go with affidavits. Just one moment. Okay, so let's just take a look here at the form that we recently posted on social media. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and download this as a PDF so we can look at it that way. And let's take a quick look at the document. Okay, it's looking a little blurry, so I am going to pull up a clearer copy. Okay, I think that's better. Okay. So if you have seen the UCC forms, they look a lot like what you see here on the screen, except we don't use their forms, we create our own forms. And the reason we create our own forms, we'll show you really quickly, where the language on their forms is not correct, okay? So what we did with our forms, and I'll just do this really quickly, run through the form really quickly. Just one moment, because I do think there was a couple of other changes that we made that are not on this one. Just one moment. Yeah, this one. Let me just take a look. This one will be a better one to look at. Yeah, I may have to do it again. Yep, I'm going to have to. Okay. So now, this ought to be good and clear. Okay, so on the, and you can pull up one of the forms that they initially were, handing out or using as UCC forms. We never used their forms because we know not to use their forms. But we looked at the form and we said, okay, let's make one for our state, because that is actually how you speak into other states. And not other states, but but you speak to the system rather, not into other states, but the system. So here we put recorder's name, because on the one that they had, let me pull that up really quickly so I can tell you what the changes were. And if you want to pull up one of their forms, you can. And matter of fact, maybe I'll do that too here on the screen. Let me see, I believe this is one right here. Okay, yeah, this is one right here. This is one of theirs, and this is what ours looks like. So our form that we put with our affidavits, so that our affidavits speak directly to the system by way of this form, our form, not theirs. And this is why. On their form, they have here name and phone of contact at filer, email contact at filer, send acknowledgement to, name and address. And then this is something that I noticed about this form that really just kind of made it clear to me that we should never use their forms. And I knew that. That's why we've been saying that. But don't use them, because they put these death brackets here. So no matter what you put in here, they're giving themselves, they're making a collateral debtor or dead one, a dead person, with this document. So what we did with ours is we put it in blue, and we took those brackets out. We put it in blue where it says acknowledgement address, and we put recorder name and recorder email, and that's in blue. The reason we put the word name here, recorder name, is because, again, in our state, we can use our person, our living natural person. And Morris, when we put these documents out, feel free to change them if you don't feel comfortable with what you see on these documents, because ultimately your demonstrations is what you're going to be standing on. Okay? We feel comfortable with that because we know that we don't have names. So we're just using a utility, a transmitting utility, in order to state what's going on. Okay? And so again, we're back to that transmitting utility thing. Here on their form, they're trying to make sure that that the transmitting utility starts out dead from the beginning. In other words, who is it that's speaking? A dead thing. They've taken all the energy out. Okay. So we say okay, and then we're not filing anything with them. We're recording it, because it actually had to be filed with our court first. And then when we notify them, that's recording it. That's speaking to the system and telling the system, do as commanded. Now, you could have put filer on there. You could have put filed on there if you want to do that, as long as you're not using their form. And then here we changed, it says send acknowledgement to, name and address, and they put their death brackets. That's a casket, by the way. We said acknowledgement address. So we don't need name and address there. We just put acknowledgement address, and Moors, you can put whatever you feel led to put there. Because again, this is coming from your state. This is speaking from the living state, not a dead state. So we can put whatever we want to put there. Then we go to the part where you begin to list the debtors. Now on theirs, if you look, debtor's name, and they have all of this stuff, and they start saying you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do that, but you can't do this. You know, you can only provide one debtor name. Use the exact name, full name. Don't omit, modify, or abbreviate any part of the debtor's name. Well, if you're talking about the United States Corporation Company, and then you put USA as the debtor, they're going to kick that back and say, nope, because you can't abbreviate. You can't modify, and you can't omit. Well, with ours, you can. You can do whatever you want to do. So we put debtor's name, and we put the debtor information in brackets. That way, no matter what you put there, it's going to not make them collateral, but it's going to put them in the status that they're in. Okay? Organization's name, last name, first name. This is all debtor information here. This is part one. And then we put mailing address, city, state, zip code, and then I put here county. And the reason I put county is because sometimes, and again, it will be, as we know, all counties were proclaimed to be, or they were enacting that the counties were corporations too, instead of the actual land. Okay? So we put that there in brackets as well. And then debtor's name, organization name. This is debtor number 2 here in this part right here. This is debtor number 2. And it's the same as the first one, except it's just like you can put a second debtor there. And then part 3, we put secured creditor in red. And then we put it in red, but then the information is in blue because we're doing admiralty. Secured creditor, this means that this is a secured creditor from our sovereign Article 3 court. That's why it's in red. And then we put the information in blue, state, organization, or government in blue. And we can put, and then here, 3B, living state. So if it's Washington, Illinois, Alabama, whatever the state is that you have put, where you've put the Constitution on the public record, or you know that a Constitution has been put on the public record by the Moors for that state, then living state. You put that one word there. It's not state of this and state of that. It's not that. It's New York. It's Washington. It's Georgia. It's Alabama. It's Illinois, etc. Then here we put living state fiduciary. And so for this, like when I do liens, I just put Pauline Ritchie here in capitis diminutio minima in blue ink, meaning the first letter capitalized and the rest of the letters lowercase. And then my fiduciary document, my fiduciary affidavit backs that up. And then we say here state created name. That means our state has created something. And you can put that either in all capital letters if you want to. If you're a secured creditor, for example, if I wanted to say my secured as part of the secured creditor claim, I can put Pauline Ritchie in all capital letters in blue ink there. And it's matching with the fiduciary is stated first, and then I can put that. So now you're talking about bank accounts being affected. You're talking about claims, all types of claims, court actions, and all of that being properly put on the public record. Okay, and then mailing address, and we know that they got that whole quote-unquote address piece. They got that from us. They hypothecated and subrogated it, attempted to. So we just brought that whole address piece back into our under our jurisdiction and capitalism. And our mailing location is for things like our national ID. Our mailing location goes on our affidavits because our affidavits speak the language of our state and our nation and our government. And then these types of forms where we're reforming and reconstructing everything, these forms speak to the system, and they speak in common commercial English. But because we're creating it's coming from us. And then city, state, and here it says post office code, whereas debtors had a zip code in black and in brackets. Okay? We say post office code here for the creditor. And then for county, district, or jurisdiction, you can put there the county, the living county, or the district. In our case, it's Washington, ancient Washington District 4, Columbia, not District of Columbia, because we had to put all of that on the same thing and lien the fake. But we know they know capitalism. The subjects know capitalism. So there's not going to be any confusion about who's actually leaning who and who's the real United States for America and all of that. And then here, this financing statement covers the following secured property. As opposed to this being a collateral statement, we said secured property. Blanket secured property statement, which covers all property, land, commerce, other, inventory, large equipment, office equipment, real estate, automobiles, conveyances, commercial instruments, letters for credit, investment securities, receivables, etc. Okay, and those are the original receivables and investment securities, not any fake fraudulent debt instrument, because we are proclaiming that which was already ours. Okay, and then that fake corporate covering is being removed off of it. And then lastly, and this is a one-page document, by the way. It's the same. It looks a lot like theirs, except it's not theirs. It's ours. Okay, and the language is what it should be. Here, number 5 says property is held in creditor trust, and then it says it's being ministered by the creditor state. Okay, being ministered by the creditor state. We are the creditor state. Okay, and we can put there. I really didn't even have to put creditor state. I could have just put the state. Or I could have put being ministered by the fiduciary, the state fiduciary. You know, and again, Morris, you can do this however you want to do it. Okay. And then it says here 6A, and this is important. Creditor is the living transmitting utility. In other words, we're the ones who own and operate and move things around, you know, because we're talking credit here. We're not talking debt. Okay. And then 6B. In their 6B, they say check only if applicable and check only one box. In other words, they're still governing whoever or attempting to govern whoever it is that fills these out. And they're saying in their limited debtor system, because there are debtors filling these forms out, they can only do certain things. It can either be an agricultural lien or a non-UCC filing if that is applicable, and only if that's applicable. Well, on our forms, we just state what it really is. A UCC-1 financing statement and lien. It's a filing, it's a court action, it's a quo warranto, mandamus, restitutio, it's an affidavit, and a writ. That's what it is. Whereas here they're saying, is it a lien? Okay, it's an agricultural lien. Is it a non-UCC filing? What is it? Okay. Well, there's no need to ask what it is because we're stating what it is here at 6B. And then 7, alternative designation is not applicable. Because on theirs, on 7, they say alternative designation if applicable. A leasee or a lessor, a consignee or consignor, seller, a buyer, a bailee, a bailer, a licensee, a licensor, none of that. It's creditor and debtor. That's what's happening here. Creditor and debtor on ours. So, and for us, it's creditor. We're the ones stating what it is. Number 8, optional filer court reference data. See attached state affidavits. That means you must attach at least one affidavit to this form on Moorish government letterhead with your sovereign autograph on it. Because as you know, these forms, Moors, don't have a place where people can autograph. They don't have it. There's no place to autograph these forms. Even on the dead debtor one, this is a dead debtor form, but there's no place to autograph. And that is because when we create them, we were supposed to send affidavits with them and not just do that and that alone. So what did we do? What we did was we took our affidavits that we put on the public record, because we did a lien on the United States Corporation Company, and we did a lien on, some others. Yes, you can use the tracking number. You can use that if you want to. You're sovereign. You can use that as long as you can stand on what you're doing. If I say, well, why did you use the tracking number? As you explain that, it's like, okay, that's why he used the tracking number. Okay. And again, these should not go by themselves. Never, ever, ever send a form of government by itself. There must always be an affidavit that leads the way, because your autograph is what's the most important. So what did we do? We took this form and we took our demonstration that we did with the conveyance and also past liens that we did. We took this form and we've begun taking all of our past liens and putting that information on these forms, and then we're going to take our affidavits, lien affidavits with these forms, and we started this today where we took that information to our office, State Secretary office. And that's what we were doing at the Capitol today, is handing that to the subjects in our office. And we want to, we appreciate the subjects that were there, who took the document without any, pushback, no war, nothing, peacefully took the document. So, are there any questions about this document? In fact, I'm trying to make sure that I put it in the chat. There's the link to the document in the chat. Okay, to this document that we just looked at and put together. Feel free to do with it what you will, heirs, in terms of stating who we really are. Okay. Are there any questions, comments on any of this, or wisdom that you'd like to add to what we stated at all, or anything with regard to the lien process? Islam. Okay. Now, I want to present something to you on a different note. And I actually had to ask the ancestors, first of all, why did they show this to us? What do they want us to do with this information? And they said, the only thing we want you to do with this information right now is present it to the heirs and let them look at it and just study it. Okay? Islam. Islam.
I'm curious. Why don't you have our flag on there on the other side, or actually registered?
Because that's what your affidavits are for. This is simply an addendum to the affidavit. It doesn't go by itself, so flags are on it. When you put flags on your affidavits, this is just an addendum to your affidavit, your lien affidavit.
It should specify the document.
Say again?
Well, then it should specify on the document addendum.
No, because, well, and the reason why it shouldn't specify that, that's a valid point that you're saying. It shouldn't say that because we're using that addendum. It's an addendum to our affidavits, but it's not an addendum where the system is concerned. We're speaking to our system, and that system has a separate addendum portion. And we don't want the Moore's liens to go to that addendum part when it should be going to the initial section of the system. Because if we put addendum on there, then it's going to be routed, and if there's no initial filed or recorded, then the system will kick that back and say there's nothing initial in it. No initial. You have to have an initial filing first. Then an addendum can come. That's the way the system is set up.
Okay.
Is you have that's really good that you brought that up, Nobility, because this is that right there what you just said. Just a moment. Let me find out where that noise is coming from. Someone needs to mute. Okay. This is why what you're saying is so important. This is why what you're saying is so important. We have to know that that's an addendum. The system does not have to know that that's an addendum. The system is going to know it's an addendum when they see our affidavit. The system is not going to record the affidavit in its entirety in that manner, in the manner of recording this form. It's not going to record the affidavit the same way it records the form. So this is where higher knowledge, and that's one of those things where other people knew that that was not initial. They knew that. We as the heirs are now privy to information that we didn't know before and that the average will not know. They're not going to know that you need to put affidavits with everything. The only ones that are going to know that is those who know law. And law says affidavit, an unrebutted affidavit stands as law. That's the law. Not an unrebutted form. That's why forms didn't work in that other system for those putting them in there. In our system, it does. But it only works with an affidavit. So again,
so what you're saying is we're drafting it as a form then.
It is a form. It is a form.
Pretty much. That's what I heard.
It is a form. It's coming straight from our state because they're not a state, but there's a system there. There's a state system there, and there's a reason why universal or uniform commercial codes go to the state secretary, whom they were calling the Secretary of State. Because those forms actually had to come from a state, and they were pretending to be the state. We're the real state. That's our state form. And even when they were putting those forms in the system, there was a bunch of other corporate paperwork on the back end that we never saw. Because we were just the sleepy, average, everyday persons, quote unquote, so we thought. Citizens, so we thought. But we were not. We are actually the government. The government sees all the back end stuff. All of that back end documentation that differentiates the government from someone who just read a constitution and know a little bit about a constitution And they'll quote it, and if there's not government in the room, people will think that incompetent quotation is the government. But we, as the government, must know the back end, the foundational documents that put the system in place, which is our affidavits. So again, when we talked initially about creditor, the difference between a creditor transmitting utility and a debtor transmitting utility, that's what your affidavits do with the form. The affidavit says this form came from a creditor transmitting utility and not a debtor one. Therefore, credits must be transferred and not debt. That's why the affidavits have to go with it. Because we're speaking to a system. The system is actually blind.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? The system is blind. The system doesn't see you or me. The system, that's why the foreigners were able to get away with what they were able to get away with until we spoke competently. Okay, but, you know, the system will know now because any documentation that comes with that form, first of all, the form did not come from them. It came from us. That's why it looks different. The ink has color. You know what I'm saying? Did that assist a little bit with that?
So that we can differentiate between their forms and our form, you know, which we are calling it a form, we're drafting as a form and an addendum to the affidavit. It would seem, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. Is there a problem with putting our flag on it along with it? Because I see you've got this, looks like the so-called banner, but
if that is, you're sovereign, you can put it on.
I like to make sure there's no.
You like to make sure that there's no. Okay. You cut out after that. You like to make sure that there's no what?
Well, I like to make sure that there's no discrepancy on their part. We know what it is. We need them to know what it is. And not miscue or think that it's something, you know, one of their. So that's the only reason why I said that. I see the colors are different. You know, they're using the monochrome. We're using, you know, color. Okay, but to make it even more concrete, our flag. It just seems feasible to me. So
you can do that if you choose to do that. You can do that. Because I know what's in our documentation and I know the work that we have done, and I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying that that form is not going anywhere without affidavits. It is part and parcel of my affidavit. It's not separate from the affidavit. It's part and parcel. So you can put, and what I am saying is you can put the flag on there if you want to put the flag on there. You can. I didn't do it for that because to me it's not separate. It's a continuation. It's a continuation. And when we do our affidavits, if you have a 5-page affidavit, the flag is not on every page. Is it?
True.
You know.
No.
So that to me is just a continuation of what we've already been doing. But again, all Moors who want to put the flag on their form, please do that. And nobody actually can tell you that you can't. Because it's your state. You're the state. You're the government. You're the law. You can put whatever you want on yours. And you know, however you choose to do it.
Islam,
nobility.
This is Isaiah. To the immediate right, above the lettering you have there in the form. We want to make certain we get that timestamp by our state secretary office, and leave that copy and make a copy for yourself.
Islam.
I yield.
Yes, Islam. We did, in fact, timestamp it before we turned the ones, before we handed down the ones that we handed down today. We handed down about 9 liens today with affidavits. And, you know, they were filed in our court first, so we timestamped them as filed in our court prior to handing them down to the subjects. And again, part and parcel of our affidavits, they are so not separate. And that's another, and Justice Raymond, I can really, really feel what you're saying about that, because we needed to have tangible, physical connection that superseded computer forms. We needed that, and the whole earth needs that. We actually are that. It's not that we needed it. We are the tangible connection to the earth and to the land. That's what our affidavits are when you're talking about computer forms, because we can use the computer system. We designed it. We made it. We created it. But that system knows no station, or it doesn't look at the paper and say this came from one of the heirs unless we say this came from one of the heirs or we created the paper. And in fact, it will recognize what it recognizes. You know. So any forms, and we're going to be the Great Reformation. Look that up in history. Look up the Great Reconstruction. Look up the Great Renaissance. That's where they were taking all of the stuff. Cause see, all of the stuff that you see, that black ink coming from them, is a reformation of what we originally created. And all we're doing is saying, okay, let's create it back again and use it. They have not had one original thought in their entire existence. Everything that's out there, every document, everything, every process, they got all of that from us, and all we're doing is saying we're going to take that back. Another reason why the form came into being, aside from the ancestors saying it's time now, is we were looking at, all this time we've been wanting to ensure that we do not contract with them inadvertently. Okay? We wanted to make sure that we never contracted with them by using their forms. And to me, that is, why would we use their form when we have our own? We're the state, we're the law, we're the government. Why would we take a form from a foreign entity? So for a long time, or for the last few years, we've been seeing the overarching changes that our affidavits cause. Our affidavits cause great change in the earth and on earth and at earth. And then the ancestors said, okay, now it's time for you to speak to the system. But again, we cannot speak to the system as co-debtors. And so for a long time we didn't see. And then recently I asked the ancestors, how do we manifest, now that we have our structure in place, our creditor structure, a way to transmit utilities from the creditors to the creditors? How do we manifest the credit where bank accounts and all of that kind of stuff is concerned? Well, this is the start of that. But the ancestors said it won't go to the right place if you use their forms. It's going to go to a dead place. and that place is finished and bankrupt. So they're just going to take like they've been doing. You know, you can listen to what's out there, the information that's being put out there about people not being able to access accounts and things like that. That doesn't have anything to do with us. Doesn't have anything to do with us. We need to, and here's the thing about the forms, Moors. For Moors who want resources put into their bank account, you must terminate all corporate contracts all the way, where proper identification of who you are is concerned, and all of that. Everything has to be terminated. Everything false has to be liened. Then what you do is any forms. Let's say if you wanted a loan that you don't have to pay back, because you really don't have to pay it back, because it's look up the definition of a loan. We talked about that before. But you would recreate that form, put your affidavits and fiduciary document and things with it. And then all you're doing, and put a lien with it. And when you put the lien with it, you're loaning to yourself. And everything is taken from the lien. You know how they talk about loan forgiveness? Well, who's the president? You all are. We are. We're the ones who can forgive loans, including the ones we get, because it's all coming from us anyway. But a lien properly executed must go with that. Then you take the form, and you not only give that information to the subjects at the that are at the bank, at our banks, but you also give that same set of documentation to the subjects at the secretary, at our state secretary's office, because that office belongs to us who's put these constitutions. Morris, please put the constitutions on the public record for your state. We are Washington. We're the secretary, the state secretary, or secretary for sovereign state. We are. That is who we are. We are the governors. So you make sure that the state secretary's office, your office, gets that information as well, and it will go right on into the system like it's supposed to. That's how you manifest the resources. Because see, again, we needed to build the infrastructure for creditor transmitting utilities before the ancestors would even put that term in our minds to say, okay, now go back and take a look at this, change and update this, change this, fix this. And now that you have built the infrastructure, and when I say you, I mean all of us, because we keep speaking, we keep using our affidavits. Our affidavits were building the infrastructure for creditors to stand. Islam nobility.
So I kind of I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm kind of lost when you say a loan. Why would we need to get a loan from them when we control everything? We wouldn't need a loan from anything. So you brought up if you want to get a loan, you want to do it. No. We have our own financial system.
Yes, we do.
So please make that clarify that
let me clarify that because I want you to and I will take the moment to clarify it, but I'd like for you to look up the word loan in an older dictionary. Look up the word loan, and then we'll look that up together. Because again, a loan is a gift from a sovereign. A gift from a sovereign. That's in a dictionary.
Yes, and we are the sovereigns.
From a sovereign.
So we're asking ourselves for a loan, is what you're saying?
We're not asking ourselves for a loan. We're just activating a loan. A gift from ourselves. Because think about it, nobility, in a debtor system, a loan was a gift from us anyway. That's why we had to keep signing stuff. We were gifting, the whole earth got loans from us. It's time for us to do that for ourselves, except there's a way to do it, the sovereign creditor way. And again, this is our system. And I'm glad you asked that question, Nobility, because I know those are the questions we need to hear and discuss. The first thing I'm always going to say in regards to any questions like that is look at the dictionary, and then what does the law say about appropriation? We can appropriate a loan, and you can call it a loan or you can call it a gift. If you want to call it a gift, call it a gift. You can call it that. Who is it? Now let's look. The brother put a definition in the chat. Loan. This is late 12th century. That which is lent or owning. Well, who owns? We just talked about who's the only ones that can own anything. Creditors. It says they're a thing furnished on promise of future return, also a gift or reward from a superior, a gift of God. I didn't put that in there. He put that in there.
What I was trying to say is that we're the only.
We're the only what? Nobility?
We're the only sovereigns, we're the only ones who can actually give a loan. So why would we use these documents? You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sense of this because
let me ask you that. What would you call it? What would you call it? If you wanted to go and use your system to get a domicile or a conveyance.
My system.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use theirs. My system. I would use
They don't have a system. Just know that. If you let me ask you something, Nobility. Right. Have you liened? Have you done liens on a bank and the United States Corporation Company?
I've done several liens, yes.
Okay. So then you're the one who broke this, who said they don't have a system. You're the one who said that.
Correct.
That's what liens do. Liens say they were pretending to be creditors, but they're not. We're the creditors. We're the bank. We're all of that. So if you were to go and get a domicile and use, now this is the important part too, Nobility, because what you're saying is brilliant. We must, as heirs, give proper accountability for everything that's moving on this estate. So what would you want to call it if you got the accountability, the credits from your own system to give proper accountability for being in a domicile? What would you want to call it? What would you call it? A gift? What would you call it?
I'm quite sure it wouldn't be, if from what we've been talking about the last couple meetings, as far as purchase orders and this and that and other, I wouldn't need help from anyone because I'm doing all of this myself. I'm just giving them a receipt for everything. For instance, if the same thing you're doing with the conveyance, right? Okay, I do the same thing, same exact process, but make out a purchase order, give them the receipt for the home. Where's the loan coming in at?
So I'm hearing in your language that you keep saying them. They don't have anything to do with this. Right. They don't have a system. That's number one, Nobility, because I heard that come out of your mouth. I see where the energy is coming from. Right. You still think that we're going to them for something, and we're not. They're not even, they're subjects. They don't have anything.
I'm giving them commands. I'm not going to them for anything. I'm just giving them commands with affidavits.
That's yes, correct.
There's no, what I mean by them, when I say them, I mean those that are not sovereign, like us.
Okay.
That's what I mean by them.
So I'll ask you again because I've asked you a couple of times and I didn't get an answer. What would you call it if you got some credits from your own estate? What would you call it? And you said, okay, I'm going to move it from this account at the bank because I'm the bank to this account because I'm the real estate company too, and I'm making sure that honorably I give accountability for all that's on the vast estate. What would you call that?
I would call it manifestation. That's what I would call it.
Okay.
I'm creating it. I'm doing it. But so it's not a loan.
Okay, and what I'm saying is, if you don't want to call it a loan, don't call it one. If the money is still moving from the bank to another account and all the accounts belong to you. We see in the chat, someone else put in the chat here, they said loan, that which is lent or owning, a thing furnished on promise of future return, also a gift or reward from a superior, a gift of God. I didn't say that. They said that, but I knew that. So let me move the word loan over, if it will make you feel more comfortable about a gift that you're giving yourself. I'll move it. I'll change that word to gift, which is what a loan is anyway. You don't even have to call it that. You can call it a donation to yourself. Because, see, in your state, see, now, and this is important, where perspective is concerned. In your state, loan does not mean what it meant in the debtor state. Sure. In a debtor state, you can call it a gift, and it's still not a credit. There's still some strings attached to it. Correct. Just like they said, you own a home. No, in the debtor state, no, you don't. The words don't mean the same, but it depends on which state of mind you're using in order to look at it. We're not in their state. We're in our state. We're not in a debtor state. We're in a creditor state. We're not in a dead state. We're in a living state. This living state, and this is important too. In this living state that we are at and that we have created, everything that we do is on our honor. It's on our honor. We don't have anyone over us saying you can have this and you can't have that. We actually have to give proper accountability. Where the conveyance demonstration is concerned, I don't have anybody saying, no, you can't have that. They're saying, with your autograph and the movement, the proper accountability, that's why I had to go back and look at the lien process, because the ancestor said, go back and look at that, because it's an accountability issue. It's not that they didn't do what I said. It's not that. It's I must be competent at accounting for what moved. Okay? In our state. So going and giving that to some subjects is not, I'm not asking them anything. I'm not asking them anything. I don't even expect to hear from them. Don't expect to hear from them. They just do as commanded, which is what they did in this case. They said, okay, all we need is proper accountability. We didn't see the credits go from this account to this account. So the ancestor said, look at the lien process, because that's where the credits came from. You said light, that's where the credits came from, so go and look at that. And when I looked at it, they said, okay, look. And it's time now.
There's another name for loan then, accountability. There we go.
You can put whatever you can put flags on yours. You can put the word accountability on yours. You can put whatever you want on what you're doing. So you and I are on the same page, nobility, with regard to what you're saying. Say what you want to say. You're sovereign. Having issue with my words is freedom for you to use yours.
I'm asking for clarity. That's all. That's all I did. Was ask for clarity.
The definition is right there in the chat.
I have issue with work.
And I'm not saying that you do. I'm not saying that you do, nobility. What I am saying is, if that word trips a trigger in your spirit, then use another one. I know what a loan means in our state. It doesn't mean it the same as it meant in a debtor state. But I only think from our state. I don't even think about their state anymore, that deadness anymore. I don't even, when I'm looking at things, I'm looking at it from the top down. And if I'm looking at it at a certain level or dimension, I'm still looking at it from our perspective, our true perspective, not theirs. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with looking at it from their perspective. That's what brought the forum piece up in the first place. I said, how do we speak to our system? It's our system. How do we speak to it? Well, we know we don't use their stuff because they're debtors. I don't even look at it from their perspective anymore. I'm looking at it from what would a creditor do? A creditor would create their own system and speak to their own system. So if the word loan doesn't feel right, nobility, you are free to choose as many different words as you want to choose. When we put things out like this, take it and use it and put whatever you want to put on it.
I was just trying to get an understanding, Empress. That's all.
Islam, and does the definition that the brother put in the chat assist at all with that?
Yes and no. I'm gonna be honest.
So then
I read his definition and I read the definition from Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Okay,
mm-hmm.
So I understand what a loan is. I've always understood what a loan is. Okay,
mm-hmm.
But the point being, these are words. For instance, the last meeting, you had a noble stating the president here, the mayor here. It's about our wordage. That's why I'm asking. That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Okay.
I meant no disrespect when I said about the flag. I meant no disrespect.
Take it that way. I didn't take it that way.
Understand.
I didn't take it as.
I'm just trying to understand. For instance, I'm looking at this flag here. You have on here. You have the American flag and the American banner here. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this is our system, we shouldn't have this banner here. You know, it may not have the stars and the whatnot, but it looks like their banner, which can be misconstrued as their form. That's why I said about our flag being on the document.
Misconstrued by whom? Misconstrued by whom?
Them, not us.
No, when they see red, they will not misconstrue red. They never will. They never will. They never will. That's why they put everything in black.
Islam.
Just one moment, Empress, because energetically, it's important that we come to the meeting of the mind. And I want to say also, Justice Raymond, what you said about the language and president and all of that, saying that we are giving ourselves a gift or a loan because we know loan means gift is not the same as assigning titles to subjects who don't have them, don't deserve them, and they don't even want our titles because they don't have the authority. That's totally different. Totally different. When the dictionary is right there.
I see where you're going with this, but okay, I yield.
And you know, I can't make it any plainer in terms of looking in the dictionary, because that's how we learn and remember. What we know is look in the dictionary. What does the word mean? We know that loan meant something bad over there, but so did everything else. You know, everything over there meant bad. Debtor. Over here on this side, where we are, and in our real world, everything is for our good. We have no debt, so we actually have to we have to know the real meaning of all of the words. A debt for us is a credit over here. It doesn't even mean debt over there. Neither does death, D-E-A-T-H. All of that, everything means something different over here, and it's all for our good over here. And that's going to be important energetically for us to take into our energy and our spirit, that when we hear words now over here in the real world and out of that dead matrix, that we know that it's for our good, and it does not mean the same thing. We know they were incompetent. We know they were. But whenever we thought we were getting a quote unquote loan over there, that was because somebody was pretending to be a fake sovereign. Okay? Someone pretending to be a fake sovereign.
Islam, that's why I want to interject, if I may, because I looked up an etymology dictionary, and loan is a noun, and it said that which is sent or owing, a thing furnished on promise or future return. Also, a gift or reward from a superior, a gift of God, from Old Norse loan, and so it goes on. But for the the different phonetic spellings and such. But yes, so when you read that, it says a gift from God or a gift from a superior. So with that alone, you know that they were never the superior. They were always the inferior, as in a person, a corporate fiction, right? So they were always apothecating our original being anyway. So for you to not seemingly take understanding and knowing how
we want to make sure that we keep it in a peaceful. We don't want to make it personal. We want to keep it peaceful. Because Justice Raymond is very competent, and that's why that is having a problem with that word, the word loan, coming from me. That
okay.
Problem with that. There's nothing wrong with him or me. We just have to come to a meeting of the minds on the definition of the word loan.
So yeah, but for the fact that it says a gift of God, right? So it always has to come from the understanding that we are God.
Yes.
And we are the ones who create everything in the beginning. And all they did was apothecate and adulterate.
So may I?
That's why I asked the question I asked, because I understand that it comes from God.
Okay.
Now, what was said, what I heard was, say for instance, you want to go get a loan for a home, or go get a loan. That's what I heard, and that's why I brought it to your attention.
Yes.
You said go get a loan. So who am I going to get a loan from?
Let me show you that on the screen also. Look on the screen, please.
I'm looking.
Okay. It's good that I'm glad you asked. This is God right here. This is God.
Right.
Making the loan, and who is superior to that utility. That's a transmitting utility. It's a creditor transmitting utility. So this is who would be getting the loan. This is who would be giving the loan. So in commerce, it's always been that way. We just had to do it for ourselves instead of letting somebody else claim superior status over us. So Justice Raymond in all lowercase letters is God. But Justice Raymond in all capital letters cannot get a loan unless Justice Raymond in all lowercase letters gives him one. Or else because it has to manifest in this dimension. And in the commercial dimension rather. And in order for anything to manifest in the commercial dimension, which is why everything was in capital letters and we had to take control of our own capitalism, it has to come first from us, the heirs to everything. We have to say we're the creditors to everything. Then we can give a loan to the all caps. And the thing is, those who take control in this manner that we've all taken control, including yourself, Justice Raymond, then there are going to be some who are going to need you to give them a loan because they have not taken control of their own. And they're going to be the ones coming to someone saying, I need a loan. Can you give me a loan? That's them, not you. It would be a loan to your all caps from your all lowercase, you. Or from the in capitis diminutio minima, you. Because the in capitis diminutio minima, you is how commerce starts. And then it manifests in all capital letters. But you have to be the creditor first, and the creditor is God. That's why people say, no one gives us our rights but God. Well, wait a minute and hold up. Who is that? That's us. That means they can't give it to themselves. And for us, when we give to ourselves, all we're doing is taking dominion over the earth like we're supposed to.
Correct.
We have dominion over all. So how is that dominion conveyed and transferred? How is it conveyed and transferred? This way. And you can call it, again, Justice Raymond, you and I are saying the same thing. We're on the same page. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it a gift. You can call it accountability. You can call it, because all of that is true. Everything you said is true. It's accountability. But accountability must be there. And that's something that we had to take our demonstration further and put that accountability in place. Islam.
I understand where you're going. It's just I heard.
Go ahead, Nobility. Okay. I'm listening.
We're on the same page, but what I thought I heard, and I'm pretty sure others heard the same thing. Maybe Empress Angel Bay didn't. Maybe you didn't realize what you said. Okay. But
no, I knew what I was saying because I know the definition of the word.
Islam asked you why.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to keep going back and forth. I understand. I'm not going to go say anything else.
Well, and Justice Raymond, I would just say, please just take a look at the definition. Set your feelings about the word aside, and look at the definition and take in what the definition is really saying.
It's not about the word. It's not about the word loan. It's about the verbiage that you used when you stated loan. You said verbatim what you said. What if you wanted to go get a loan?
Yes.
For a home. Go get a loan. Now, what does that signify? Go get a loan. Who you getting it from? If you're a sovereign person here and your fiduciary is here, then you would just gift a loan to yourself, right? Or to not to yourself, but to you, as opposed to the sovereign, to the fiduciary.
Don't forget the system, though. The system must be used. The system must be used because we said the system must be used because it gives proper accountability.
Right.
Now, if I sit at home in my living room and just do it and don't use the system, then that's accountability, but is it going to manifest? And that's the issue that the Moors have had with the doctrines and things that have been going out there, is how do we make that translate and apply it in our everyday life? This is how. You gift yourself with whatever you need, but it must be done appropriately by appropriations. Appropriations is not asking anyone's opinion. According to the Constitution, appropriations can only be done by the law. Only by the law. That's in Article 1. Who's the law? We are. So we're not asking or begging. We're just using the system that we put in place, that we have worked so hard to get that corporate dead crap off of. So now we can use it we can use it without fear, without, we can use it. I hear what you're saying in the chat, Empress, I don't want to attack anyone, okay? I don't want it to seem like it's attacking, but there is emotion involved in what you're saying, Justice Raymond. There's emotion attached to, and I get it now. Don't think I don't get it. If there is emotion attached to the word loan and going to get a loan, you're going.
I'm a Leo, and I'm just outspoken, just like you are. We're a day apart, so
yes,
we're the same
Islam.
people.
That's why I say I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
Gotcha.
I get it.
Islam.
Islam.
I just keep I'm going to keep pointing to the dictionary.
But okay.
And I'm also going to point to what we have on the screen there. We've talked about capitalism because capitalism is commerce.
Right.
Okay? And commerce is where the Moors had their biggest spells cast on them. So I get it, Justice Raymond. That's where the spell came from, but we done beat that spell and we done abolished that thing, and now we got it right. And now we can use the dictionary with where spells are concerned to use the right word. Because right word, dictionary, jurisdiction, right word. Jurisdiction, right word. We can use that word because one thing I know about all the words is those foreigners didn't think of any. They just listened to what we said and said, let's turn that upside down and use it that way. That's all they did. And all we're doing is taking everything that we thought was stolen and using it for our good. For our good.
Islam.
And so even when we do it that way, we don't have to worry about someone saying, oh, you got a credit score of 475. No, your credit is endless, unlimited. But you have to give it to yourself and use the system to do it. Your own forms. This is called the Great Reformation. We're just reforming. That means put the forms back out there the right way. And when the forms say the right thing, the system is going to give you whatever it is that you command. Islam, Empress.
Islam. A few things, if I may. So, first of all, when we speak about a loan, it is a banking term also, right? Because we have to take into account, and that's another banking term, an account, that everything comes back onto us anyway, tenfold. So, if the word loan is used properly, the gift given shall be planted in the seed into the soil, and it'll reap the harvest that it's supposed to, and then you've gotten it back tenfold, because that's literally what the word loan means. It's a gift, which is a seed, put it in the ground, and then watch the harvest come to fruition, right? And then also into banking terms, you're just balancing books, right? Because the lowercase Pauline gives what is a gift or a loan to the capital Pauline, but then she has to be the good steward, right, and do good stewardship of what was given to her, and then and continue to and show favor. Right? She can't be a bad steward with this. And then one more thing. I was taking the train to go to Queens today, and I heard this modern day European mention the word corporate America. And by golly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Yep. He was talking to, I guess, one of his colleagues about corporate America. And I was like, oh, my goodness, corporate America, that's a corporation government, right? But I've heard that term corporate America time and time again for persons talk about, oh, I want to get out of corporate America. But when you realize that corporate America are these corporations, what are they making when they have these rule books and or these handbooks in their hand guides? They're making statutes and codes, right? And this is why the quote unquote vaccine pandemic was so effective, because for all those corporate persons, they were participating in corporate person espionage, because they were corporate persons doing corporate business, and that's all it's ever been to begin with, right? So when he said corporate business, I said, no wonder there's no separation between the corporate fiction government and corporate entities. There's no such separation. And this is why lobbyists, bankers, politicians, all these persons acting on that stage over there have never been separate. They've all been the same, because it's all been what? A corporate fiction, corporate America. Yep. All of it. Yep. And this is why we're making the distinction that we are the sovereign living America, and we are the sovereign creditors.
That's where they get that
their own law
stuff from.
Mm-hmm.
They're spelling me in black ink and all capital letters in a casket.
Yes. So that's why, like, words, I understand them. I'm like, I used to get upset, but then I'm like, no, they don't create nothing. We are the author and the finisher of our own faith, and we're the first of everything. So if this word exists, and it does, we have to know that we created it, and then they apothecated it. So it had to be a reason why we created this word loan, this 4-letter word, right? And then loan, and you hear own in it. It doesn't appear, but it's own. Loan, own. So we are our own loaner. Okay, that's just what just came to me. But so anyway, yes, we give ourselves unto ourselves, because it all folds back into us, because that's the trueness of the yin and the yang. It folds unto itself all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Justice Raymond, may I be honest, really, like, a little bit bluntly honest about what I'm hearing, if you don't mind? Justice Raymond, are you there? Because
I'm here, yes, please. Be
okay.
honest.
And I'm always honest, but when I'm stepping into personal space, sometimes I like to ask permission. Honestly, I can hear some trauma in what you're saying. It seems that you may have been just a little traumatized by that system. And that's really what I wanted to say is I get that. I get it. I hear that in your energy, and I get it. And whenever I hear trauma in someone's energy, it resonates because I've been there too. I hear the trauma in what you're saying. You sound traumatized by that system. And I could go a lot deeper into that, but I won't, because we've all had that, and we all don't need to have the scarring to be the focus. What needs to be the focus for all of us, now I'm talking about everybody, is the healing of our nation, where that old system was concerned. We need to focus on the healing of our nation. And I know in my knower, and I know it without a doubt or contradiction, that what we are doing right now will provide the healing. It will be part of the healing process. There's not any single more that I know of who has not been traumatized in one way or another by that system. Whether it be having to have an eviction enacted, or having jail or things like that. Some have had heirs taken. You know, I've done several POW demonstrations, you know, but that system belongs to the Moors. The living system belongs to the Moors, and the dead system is going with the dead. Period. We are not taking no for an answer. So anyone who's been traumatized by that system, just know that everything that we're doing is because of that. That is why we get up every day and do what we do, is so that the healing happens. The healing happens. We're not chasing down and trying to beat down anybody who was previously in that system and that we thought might have been doing things to us. What we are doing, though, is healing our nation, because our nation needs healing. So, Justice Raymond, I honor that you spoke, and I'm glad you feel comfortable to speak up like that, because I know that you're not the only one thinking that. I know that. I know that. And that's okay, because we're here. And what we're doing is to heal that energy, the hurt energy, because that's what it is. And sometimes when we hear the hurt energy, you know, our response is not always what it should be, but we're all working on that to make sure that those who have been maybe just a little bit traumatized or a lot traumatized by that system can still speak freely. Because that's why we even have these calls, is because we get to hear each other. So I hear the trauma. I hear it. So with that being said, are there any other, we're actually going to send some energy out to all, including ourselves, who've been traumatized, because we can heal ourselves. That's why, physician, heal thyself. We can heal ourselves. And we actually have to be willing to heal ourselves from that so that we can see clearly. One of the heirs put in the chat that emotions has a tendency to, you know, do something with clarity, where clarity is concerned. And that is absolutely true. You know, she said emotions get in the way of divine sovereign clarity. They do, on all fronts. That's why I'm constantly clearing energy, so that I can continue to present the information without skewing and leaning things a certain way, you know, and so that I can speak freely too, you know. So I appreciate everyone who is speaking freely, and also particularly the energy within each of us that has been traumatized, that we're determined to get beyond, because we've all been traumatized at some point by the previous era. And coming together like this is the way to get past it. We have to get past it because we have an entire state to enjoy. So with that being said, are there any other wisdom, questions, comments, etc.? Islam Empress.
We had went over last week that we would need to have 2 additional documents. There was some at least questions that was presented to me with the the document of, I started doing it actually. I found some templates, and I knew I needed to reword them and such. What was it? The occupation, to occupy, and the other one, the quick claim. Yes. And so, would need because the language, I'm going to edit the language in from the templates that I had found, and then just put it on the letterhead that I was. Oh, speaking of letterhead, I cannot find so far for New York without stating of. So I had to go all the way back to like 1680 something to get the seal that has no of. It just says state New York. And so that's what I decided is necessary to use, because that's, going back to ancient times. And for the quick claim,
take the word state off of there also, because the land is New York. If you choose to,
Oh, but it is not. There's not too much of a difference as far as the images are concerned. They just, put color and added the letter, the two-worded letter of into it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's the same, really. So, and it's in black and white. I like black and white. But anyway, yes. So those two documents. Are we going to go over those in the future together?
Yes, we will do that on a call coming up in the next days and weeks. We have to, everything that we talk about, we're going to be revisiting everything over time, just to add further clarity and add further sharpness, to what we're doing. Yeah. Perfecting that which is even perfect already. We can make it more perfect. So yes, we will.
Yes, and then as far as the as occupying our government, I started crafting that document as well.
Well, we are the government. We're just going to be talking about the buildings, because when we talk about occupying a building, it's occupying in our own state. And that's, I think that with most of the things that we say, we are still training ourselves to know that we're not in that other state, which is not a state. We're in the real state, So yeah, that occupying, the occupancy certificate is more for, it's actually a spiritual document first, and then it manifests in this dimension as well. So yeah, we're going to be putting more clarity on that as we go. I wanted to get that lien piece done this week as well.
That was definitely important. Definitely.
Yeah. Because, the way the ancestors reveal things is they'll give us something and then they'll show us how to get there. They say, this is where you're going. This is where you're going. This is how you get there. And so even with the buildings, accountability has to be there, proper accountability. And the occupancy affidavit is part of that. And then with the affidavit is a certificate. And with that, when you put both of those together, it's going to make the system do what it's supposed to do. So we need to take a look at occupancy certificates from previous, see what metrics they were looking at, and then recreate that or create it in our sovereign state, and then create an affidavit to go with it. And occupancy will be done, period. I know occupancy at your territory, Empress, from the corporate dead perspective is just crazy. That's like they have the strictest occupancy, things going on. But fortunately, you don't have to worry about that. You just pick an occupancy certificate, look at what it has on it, and then recreate it for your own sovereign state. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already invented. We did that from the very beginning. All we're doing now is taking the wheel that we invented initially anyway. So where occupancy and even where employment is concerned, when someone gives an employment affidavit or an employment form application, then first we create an affidavit because we're employing ourselves. We're paying ourselves, but then we have to have that system give accountability for the pay that's coming in. That's something I have to do myself as well. You know, is for the judicial work that we do and the postmaster duties and all of that, I'm going to have to make it so that I'm paying myself, but that the system puts the pay in the bank account. That's all of that is a part and parcel of what you presented last week, Empress, and where we're going with all of this. It's stages and phases for everything that we're doing. You know, so let's just keep going. We got this. It's a wrap, especially with the form, recreating the forms part, reforms. Look in history at the eras that they call the Great Reformation and the Great Reconstruction era and the Renaissance era, and see that all they did was look at what we had and they recreated it and put it on the public record, and they started using it. And that's why 1933 is so important to them. 1933 is so important to them because they actually worked their way up to recreating the money by making fiat. So that was a heyday for them. And now we're there. It's our turn again. You know. So, but we have to know that nobody is over us. So we are getting whatever we get from ourselves, honorably, of course, by using this. And the system is just a checks and balances to make sure that we check all the boxes and that accountability is there. In case we ever have to justify, all we got to do is say, hey, look in the system. That's what happened. Islam. With that being said, is there any other questions, wisdom, comments, anything of that? Justice Raymond, thank you. I see your comment in the chat. Thank you so much for your questions, for all that you're saying. I get it. We get it. And we actually have to send each other healing and help in that area of making sure that when we look at the dictionary that we see what we see through the trauma, because that's what I was hearing was the trauma, you know. And we get it. We get it. Islam. Islam nobility.
Yes, this is Izine again. What you said about the liens are definitely working because the subjects in Lebanon are in total chaos. They are trying. Most of them are trying to make a run on their so-called banks, and they just refuse. One gentleman was trying to withdraw his 300-some-odd thousand of dead money, and the so-called bank refused to give him upon demand what he wanted out. He wanted just to totally close that account. They refused to let him do so. So what he did was got his gun, went back to that so-called bank, and demanded his money. So what they decided to do is they made a deal where they gave him partial amount. Somewhere he requested the full amount, which was 6 figures. They actually released somewhere around 5 figures, $30-some thousand in Federal Reserve notes. And he took that and he turned himself into the so-called local policy enforcers. And they released him shortly thereafter with no criminal convictions or whatever. So they got the people lined up trying to pull down their so-called funds, and it's total chaos. It's
That
taking
should
the
tell them that it's not theirs.
Yeah. Say that again.
I said that should tell them that it's not theirs. It's not theirs.
Exactly. So they are total chaos right there. I yield.
What I heard was it was a robbery on a robbery on a robbery, because he was trying to withdraw his quote-unquote fiat. They told him no. He was feeling robbed, so he had to go garnish his weapon and attempt to rob them from stopping them from him not feeling like he was getting his fiat, which was an attempt of robbery. That's why he had to go turn himself into the quote-unquote fictitious authorities. You follow what I'm saying? So all the while, everyone's being robbed because they're not in their proper person. And they haven't got any money anyway. It's all been fiat. So that's where the big robbery took place. So that part.
Well, we're being shown that it doesn't matter how much you have, it's how much you control.
Islam, that too.
It doesn't matter how much they were claiming they had. If they don't control it, then what? That's why we're doing what we're doing. And now all we're doing is saying, okay, we control our own economics. We control our own everything. How do we govern it so that it is honorably controlled by us? Because we don't have anybody else who can sign something and say, here you go. You can have this much of your own. We don't have that. So now we say, okay, in honor, we got to make sure that the system reflects what it needs to reflect. And that's what we're doing right now, is making sure that we know how to push the buttons in our own system so that everything is properly accounted for. Accountability is a great word for what we're doing. And make no mistake about it, in the Bibliotheliotheque, when they talk about the Acts of the Apostles, Acts is short for accounts and accountability. They were doing financial stuff. And when we read it from that perspective, it will all make sense. They were apostilling their own stuff, their own financial stuff, because there's nobody over. There's no. We're the authorities. We're the law. We're the government. And so honorability and accountability, where financial things are concerned, means knowing what everything means and knowing how to use it. That's all we're doing. So, but that being said, we will, let me just look on my documentation. Yeah. I was going to introduce something here, but it required us to clear our energy before I introduce it, because of the sensitive nature of what I was going to introduce. Do you all want me to introduce it now and we can speak about it some more next time, or do you want me to wait until next time to introduce?
I think we should introduce so we can meditate, maybe, possibly.
Islam. Anyone else? Is there anyone in that is not in favor? Oh, it says wait until. Justice Morpheus says wait until next time. Let's take a vote.
I would like for you to introduce it.
Yay.
That's two. That's three to introduce, and one to wait. Justice Morpheus says wait until next time. Are there any other votes, please? yes, introduce, or no, wait until next time. So far, we have a majority of 3 on yes.
Yes, yes.
4 on yes.
Yay.
5 on yes. 5 on
Yay.
6 on
Empress
yes.
Cynthia
Islam.
and Bay.
Okay. At this point, we have 6 saying yes and 1 saying no. So we will go with the majority at this time. Before I introduce it, can we just please take 30 seconds to clear our energy because it's a little bit sensitive topic. So just 30 seconds really quickly. To just take a deep breath and express gratitude for the abundance that's here for us. Okay. All right. So we know that those like Saddam Hussein and the actor that was doing business as Muammar Gaddafi and all of those, Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro and all of those, we know that they were sending signals to us on the things that we should be doing or that need to be done, such as nationalizing resources. You know, we've already done those things. We've nationalized our resources. We've built our infrastructure. But I want to show you the next something that we just need to consider looking at. There's no way we can vote on this tonight. No way because we don't have time to do the consideration. But just I'm putting it forth. Let's look at it, and then maybe if we want to do it, whenever it's time for it to come back up, it'll come back up. So this, let me put this in the chat. I'll put the link here, and let's just take a look at it. This is, you know, here we have House joint resolutions and House resolutions, etc. Well, this came up on my screen the other day, and I just asked the ancestors why did it come up, and they said for you to just put it out there, and you all can talk about it, and then when it's time, you'll decide what to do with it. This is on the quote-unquote United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, as you can see on the screen. Let me make sure it's showing on the screen first. Yeah, it's showing on the screen. This is Iraqi Resolution number 666 of 1980 regarding nationality. And again, when we look at the subjects, they've been modeling things. So we want to just look at it. This is something that the actor known as Saddam Hussein put forth. It's only 3 very basic provisions where citizenship and nationality are concerned, and he was trying to do things to keep his quote-unquote state I don't even know what word to use besides unamalgamated. So this came up on my screen out of nowhere. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't even know it existed, but it came up. So here goes. It says the date of entry into force was 1980 for them. In accordance with the provisions of paragraph A of Article 42 of the Interim Constitution, so he was quoting their Constitution. It says, number 1, the Iraqi nationality shall be dropped from any Iraqi of foreign origin if it is appeared that he is not loyal to the homeland, people, higher national and social objectives of the revolution. Number 2, the Minister of Interior must order anyone whose Iraqi nationality has been dropped under paragraph 1, unless he is convinced according to sufficient reasons that his stay in Iraq is a matter required by judicial or legal necessity or for preservation of the rights of other persons which are officially authenticated. Number 3, the Minister of Interior shall undertake to execute this resolution. So what this resolution is saying is that anyone who, because we know that this is what we do know. Let me just start there. What we do know is that all citizens, or subjects rather, are actually persons who are claiming an indirect lineage with us, the nationals, at all lands. That's what they were claiming. They were claiming to be Americans when that's not really who they are. They were claiming to be Jews, and that's not who they really are. Okay? Moorish subjects ipso jure started claiming to be Moors when that's not really who they are. They are subjects first. And what he was saying here, and this is something he was modeling for us to give us language to look at, is any, let's just say, Moorish nationality shall be dropped from any Moorish subject of foreign origin if it appears that they're not loyal to the homeland, the people, not the persons, the people, higher national and social objectives of this reconstruction, reformation, Renaissance revolution. For us, all of that happens on paper. And what he was saying, he put this forth in 1980, and then in 1982 was what they used, because he started actually enacting this. Okay, he started enacting this. And when he started enacting this, because he's not us, that is what they chose to use to, quote unquote, hang him. They said in 1982, he started doing crimes against humanity because he's not us. So he was acting some things out where nationality is concerned. And we just need to go ahead and you know, I know that the ancestors would not have shown me this because I wasn't even looking for it. They wouldn't have shown it unless it needed to be presented and let us just talk about it. And when it's time to do something about it, they will tell us what to do about it. Okay, but this is not something that, you know, that we can overlook, because apparently it's coming into fruition that something needs to be put on the public record to something of this nature. How we say that is up to us, okay? How we say that is up to us, or whether we say it is up to us. Okay? Because we do see where there are some Moors who are issuing subject status documentation. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because how did the usurpation happen or become enacted out to the point where it was so believable? Now, am I saying I'm for this or against this? I'm not saying either one of those. What I am saying is the ancestors put it on my screen, so we're going to look at it. Okay? And however the ancestors tell us and guide us to do that from within, that is what we will do. That is how we will do it, and all of that. The numbering system for this particular resolution is no accident. The whole earth knows our numbering system. So they already know that if you put something like 666 on something, that we're going to pay attention to it and see what does that mean? Who's saying that? And they know, we know that too. That's why we said and did what we said and did with that particular number and putting things on the public record 3 years ago. And it caused everyone to take notice. So we'll look at it, and we will, let that marinate in your system, Moors, and then we'll go from there. If we don't get back to it for 6 months, so be it. That just means that the ancestors wanted us to think a little longer about it, and we'll go from there. Okay. So sometimes when we bring things up, it's not always to do something right then. It's for us to discuss it, to talk about it, to see how we feel about it in our spirit, in the spirit. And with open eye and with thought and with processing the information, and because we're in this for the long, we're in this eternally. Okay? And I apologize. I meant to put this in the chat. Let me go ahead and do that now. Thank you, Assumption. There's the link to what we're reading. It's a 3-article resolution that caused them to respond a particular way to him not being us. Okay? And so that is the introduction of it, and I will let that sit there with you and with us and with all of us and let the ancestors lead us on what to do with that information. Okay? Islam Empress.
My consort, his eyes went directly on interim constitution, and it says in accordance with the provisions of Para A Article 42 of the interim. So yes. That means it's a temporary thing, not for it to be forever. And so is this interim constitution what this is all predicated on?
So he knows our science, and interim constitution means that he didn't have the authority to put a solid one on the record, and no one else could do that until we did it, which we have done. And I'm pretty sure that's why the ancestors have even put that on my screen, is because we've all put constitutions on the public record for the most part, those who did it. Okay? And we have to start looking at certain things with regard to that. He couldn't do it. That's why it said interim constitution, but he's pointing directly to that was predicated on the Constitution. So now let me ask you, did you know that nationality is inferred in the Constitution?
No.
Yes, with the fourth tongue language, it's already assumed and known. Well, not assumed. Let me not use the word assumed. It's already understood.
There's language in the Constitution that talks about that. We'll have to expand on that when we, whenever you all are ready, because you're the Congress. We're the Congress. So whenever we decide that we want to talk about that, we'll pull the Constitution up and look at it again. And again, that's why I say we're going to be pulling these documents and things up and these processes up repeatedly, because new things will be being revealed, and it's not new, it's ancient. Our ancestors did not play when it came to foreign matter on the land. They did not play with when it came to that. Okay, and they didn't take any mess off of any foreign matter either, and they don't want us to do that either, which we will not do. But that first had to come with us clearing our own selves of foreign matter and foreign fiat and foreign this and foreign that. Okay, judgment begins at home first. So we had to judge ourselves first and say, where are we amalgamating commercially at, or any other areas of our lives? Where is there areas that could cause compromise? Because we cannot compromise. We're the government, we're the law, we can't. And I will say this about that just really quickly. That's where Justice Raymond's energy was coming from. He refuses to compromise. So I honor that. That we know clean, pure. Yes, Empress Nabi, clean, pure nation. We will stay clean and stay pure. And this resolution that was put up here, he pointed to a constitution, and then he said, this is some language. And then all they're saying is more. Y'all need to be looking at that.
Yeah, because we're not going back where we were.
No. And now that we have stated our dominion properly on the public record, we have to determine what to do with the remaining energies. And you can look in the Biblios Heliotext for how that turned out, whether we clear the land of all energies that were previously pretending to be foreign, or whether we let some stay, energies stay.
Get it all gone.
You know?
Well, it's already clear in that part.
Well, when we say that, we can say whatever we want to say because we're sovereign. When we say it, our energy must be clear and pure, and it can't be out of vengeance or anger or anything like that. It's got to be out of clean, pure energy of this land shall, and we know it's going to be lawful. We're here, so it's lawful. But there cannot be any malice or, ill intent or anger or anything. We actually have to send that energy away peacefully also. Go in peace energy is what we have to have when we, if we, depending on how we choose to manifest this resolution, whether it be manifesting it or setting it aside or waiting or whatever we choose to do, or not doing anything about it, which is not going to happen. We're going to do something about everything that the ancestors bring to our eyes, because you can't unsee it.
Right.
I couldn't unsee this when they showed it to me, because I'm like, where did this even come from? I think I might have been looking for sea salts or something. And that came up. And they said, nope, stay right there and look at it. It's got all the markers. You need to look at it. So we did, and they said, okay. And they even put nationality in parentheses.
That's just mind-blowing.
That's how the ancestors do when they're revealing things to us and showing us things. And you all know this because you get things revealed to you all the time, too. They will put something seemingly completely unrelated on your screen, but it's absolutely relevant.
Yeah.
Yes. So with that being said, we're going to adjourn here, and we will pick back up on
Islam.
Sunday. Islam, Empress.
May I just
Yes, please.
I have a question. I can't stop looking at the numbers, the numerals on that, what you just brought up. But anyway, I digress there. But somebody had put a question in regards the form.
Yes.
The UCC form, and I have the same question, so I was actually excited to see it there. Can we, there's spaces for two debtors. can we add and just renumber just as we would?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why?
And that's
Is it
why
just the
our
same
state
way?
had to do that.
Hmm?
That's why we have to do our own forms for everything, because we can edit them accordingly.
And okay, wonderful. And it can be on legal, or that looks like it's on letter size, but I mean,
I would put it on letter size because of the system that we're speaking to, which is our system, and then let your affidavit that accompanies it be on legal.
on the legal. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Islam.
Islam.
Great question, Empress. Yep. And I apologize that I missed that question.
Not a problem. Everything has its time. You have
Yeah.
to get this proclamation, or I mean, the numbers. I don't know, but anyway,
Yeah.
I shall meditate on it. So,
Yeah. We shall all meditate on this one.
yeah. Yeah.
With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Grand rising.
Islam. Thank you, Justice Freeman.
Peace and love.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Grand Rising. Thank you. Peace.
Peace and love, Grand Rising.
Islam, Empress.
Oh, Grand Rising.
Islam, nobility. Islam in the chat. Peace and love.